Well, the Big 12 is going to have a new commissioner. Bob Bowlsby, the current Big 12 commissioner, announced today that he'll be stepping down later this year, and now the search is on for his replacement. What is Bob Bowlsby's legacy, and most importantly, who will the Big 12 hire in a massively, massively important hire for the league in a time of turmoil in college athletics? Welcome into the channel. I am John Kurtz, back at you the old-fashioned way here. Not a live show. You typically get at least one in-season 2 live shows per week as I give you the Big 12 slant here on this channel. Trying to give the Big 12 a voice as I have been since the beginning of conference realignment. Okay, this is a doozy today. Immediately, basically, after the end of the college basketball season with Kansas winning the NCAA title last night, Bob Bowlsby, the Big 12 commissioner, announced today that he'll be stepping down sometime in 2022. So here are the details from The Athletic and what we know. Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlsby will step away from his role with the league later in 2022, the conference announced in a release. Bowlsby has been in charge since 2012. He'll transition into a new interim role with the conference once a new commissioner is appointed. So that's interesting right there. Bob Bowlsby is going to stay in, it would seem to me, like an advisory kind of role with the conference. So it's like Bob Bowlsby stepping aside, but his guidance will still be there. So in a lot of ways for the Big 12, this is a best case scenario. If you are worried at all here about Bowlsby and losing some of the wisdom that he has at age 70 here, it seems like that's still going to be there and still be in the room. Think like all of these head coaches out there that bring in some kind of special assistant to the coach. You can get creative with the titles and the support staff and all of that. Continuing on from the article, the Big 12 wants to have a new commissioner in place in 90 days. That's what Texas Tech president and board chair Lawrence Chovanec told The Athletic. So again, on one hand, this is pretty surprising and a little jarring because we hadn't heard anything about this, but when you stop to think about it for even a second, you realize Bob Bowlsby just went through 2 of the most stressful years you could ever possibly have as a commissioner of a conference with COVID and then conference realignment with Texas and Oklahoma leaving. Unprecedented times. And he's 70 years old. So I'm sure he does not want to be continuing to deal with this sort of stress as things are, newsflash, not going to get less stressful for the commissioner of the Big 12 in the next, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, etc. It's going to continue to be very stressful for somebody of his age, and he's accomplished a lot. I'm sure he's doing well financially. It doesn't make a ton of sense to keep doing this full-time if you are him. Again, back to the article here. Quote, here's his quote. After more than 40 years of serving in leadership roles in intercollegiate athletics, including the last 10 with the Big 12, and given the major issues facing college sports in general and the Big 12 specifically, I have reached a natural transition point in my tenure as commissioner as well as in my career. It's another part of this that really makes sense, right? It's a time to hand it off. He did his job in putting out the fire, but now there are real legitimate long-term questions that are going to need to be answered over the next 5 to 10 years, hopefully, for this league, right? And so that seems to be the job of somebody else and not Bowlsby himself. The Athletic says the Big 12 has undergone a turbulent past 12 months, responding to Texas and Oklahoma's departure for the SEC by bringing in UCF, BYU, Houston, and Cincy as new members for 2023. It's very clear to me by the timing that this is something that had been decided for a while, right? And they're just waiting until the end of basketball season to go ahead and just let this fly and start the process now. That's the other part of this. I like the timing. Bowlsby clearly is doing the league kind of a favor in that and waiting until it's now sort of the dead period. Nothing against college baseball here. But in terms of the major sports, they're out of the way. This is the quietest time on the sports calendar really for the league to get this done and still get it done in a time frame where you can have somebody in place getting ready for football season and getting ready for the upcoming negotiations for the new TV contract, which you're looking at that starting in 2024. Here's some insight from Max Olson of The Athletic. He says, the past 2 years for the Big 12 and college athletics have been intense, to say the least. After working through COVID-19 in 2020 and the surprise defection of Oklahoma and Texas in 2021, Bowlsby felt ready to move on. The Big 12 is on stable ground at the moment, but will start negotiating its next TV contract in 2024. Making the change now gives its next commissioner time to adapt to the role and prepare for those talks, which are massively important for the long-term financial stability of the conference and its members. And yes, that's what I alluded to there. That is going to be such a wildly important decision. It's a long ways off. And Bowlsby, looking at the calendar here, can see like, hey man, I'm 70. I just went through this. I don't know how much longer I want to do this. I can't decide like a year and a half, 2 years down the line, wait, I don't want to do this. It would be putting the league in harm's way and in a really tough position if he did do that, because now all of a sudden you have that transition coming closer to the TV contract negotiations, which are going to be paramount here to try and get every last dime that you can. So that is why the timing happens now. Bowlsby is really doing the Big 12 a solid. I cannot reiterate that enough by making this decision right now. And that is not about a criticism of what Bowlsby has done, because we're going to discuss his legacy here in just a moment. I think it's more complex than a lot of people would make it out to be. It's more like it is a sensical thing here, I think, for Bowlsby and the Big 12 to basically part ways, or not totally. I guess he'll be on in that advisory role, but you get the point. So, okay, what is Bob Bowlsby's legacy? According to Sam Kahn of The Athletic, he says the legacy is complicated. He took over at a turbulent time and stabilized the league temporarily with the grant of rights in 2012. Bypassing expansion in 2016 was second-guessed, especially after Texas and Oklahoma left. The league won no college football playoff games, lost ground to the SEC and Big Ten. He oversaw an intriguing 4-team expansion. There you can see exactly how complicated it is, and I would agree with most of Sam's thoughts there. The one thing I would rebuke here is I think it's a very easy and lazy take to say, well, I mean, look, Bob Bowlsby sucked. He let Texas and Oklahoma leave. He didn't expand in 2016. This guy was a joke. I don't think that's true at all, and I've always pushed back against that, saying, 2016, the expansion in 2016 really annoyed me. That Oklahoma fans trying to say that on the other side of them leaving, like adding Houston to the conference was going to make enough of a difference for you to not take the SEC money. That's going to make up the gap of $30 to $40 million per year that the Big 12 could be looking at from being behind the SEC and the Big Ten. That's the advantage that Oklahoma is gaining by going to that league, right? Adding Houston and BYU in 2016 would not have made enough of a difference for that. And as far as just losing Texas and Oklahoma, look, they kept it a secret from everybody. There are loose lips everywhere in Austin. That's a part of why they have problems winning games, because there are too many cooks in the kitchen, people who think they're important. They kept that away from all the media there. They kept it away from everybody, and they did a really good job of that. I don't think any commissioner was going to be able to crack that case. And even if you do find out about Texas and Oklahoma deciding they want to leave, what are you going to do to actually fix it? What in the history of the Big 12 suggests that anybody would have been able to quell Texas, to keep them calm down and keep them in the league if they were unhappy? There's nothing to suggest that would have ever happened here. So I don't fault Bowlsby totally for that, and he did do a good job in a panic situation bringing in the 4 teams that he did, making at least some lemonade out of the lemons that were handed to him right there. That was a tougher job than I think people would make it out to be, to get it done that swiftly and cleanly as he did. But the points are still true. Didn't win college football playoff games, lost ground to the SEC and the Big Ten, and ultimately did lose Texas and Oklahoma. So it's a very, very complicated legacy, I think, for Bowlsby. And in the end, a part of what really tells you that it's a complicated legacy and not somebody that's a slam dunk, did a great job, is that I sit here and finding out the news, I'm not panicking. I'm not freaking out. I kind of say, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Let's go get some fresh blood. I think that could actually be good for all parties involved here. And the easy way to figure this stuff out is in a trade, if a team's trading somebody away, I'm a Chiefs fan, they traded away Tyreek Hill, and I'm sitting here thinking oh man, I can talk myself into the logic, but you just think it through God, they're missing Tyreek Hill. That is a loss. That sucks. You do not have that sort of same feel here for Bob Bowlsby and what the Big 12 is losing. All right, so The Athletic named some candidates. We also had Ross Dellinger of Sports Illustrated name some potential candidates here for the Big 12 and where they go next. Nicole Auerbach says it depends on which way the Big 12 wants to go. 2 of the last 3 open Power 5 jobs went to people who had not previously worked on college campuses, which meant there would be a learning curve. Would the Big 12 follow suit and prioritize someone with a business or TV background to negotiate the next media rights deal? Would the league look at Oliver Luck, who consulted with the league last year and has a collegiate and pro sports background as well as a strong leadership reputation? Would it go the athletic director route? Shane Lyons at West Virginia, Kirby Hocutt at Texas Tech are sitting ADs in the league, as well as Mack Rhodes, though he just signed an extension earlier this week, which he did at Baylor and is a total stud. Look at Baylor's athletic department right now. But I do think those are some sensical in-house candidates that the Big 12 wanted to look that way for a current athletic director. Nicole Auerbach of The Athletic also mentioned outside the league going to prominent ADs such as Gene Smith or Jen Cohen or even Big East Commissioner Val Ackerman. Associate Commissioner Ed Stewart is another name I've seen a couple of times. He's currently with the Big 12 already. He was also mentioned by Ross Dellinger of Sports Illustrated, who said a few candidates to watch per some industry insiders: Bama AD Greg Byrne, Baylor AD Mack Rhodes, West Virginia AD Shane Lyons, Oliver Luck, Oregon AD Rob Mullins, UW AD Jen Cohen. I'm going to guess that that's Washington. Colorado AD Rick George, Big 12 Senior Associate Commissioner Ed Stewart. So there's a working list of candidates right now. Honestly, I'm pretty open to anything here. I mean, look, Oliver Luck is the easy name to jump to right away because he's been consulting with the league and he does have this reputation of a guy who's done a lot of things and had a lot of success in his time in college athletics. But to me, that does feel like a little bit of a kind of safe play. And, say what you will about the Pac-12 and George Kliavkov. I mean, that was a very unique hire. He was somebody who had been working with MGM Grand in Vegas when he got hired. Kevin Warren of the Big Ten, he had a law background and was working with the Minnesota Vikings when he got hired. So there have been some creative ways that these conferences have gone. And I think the Big 12 here, what do we talk about all the time? They need to be very unique in how they brand the conference. Maybe playing on some weeknights. Maybe going out and embracing gambling more than any other leagues, making it just a really fun kind of zany league, like a juiced up Maction. And I know you cringe a little bit hearing that, but if you want to maximize your TV value, there is a lot of value in that and that kind of thinking. So honestly, I'm open to if the Big 12 wants to try and go a unique route. I think that actually might be something that could prove very beneficial long term, especially if you then pair it with Bowlsby as a consultant who can kind of be the governor on some of that and keep it from getting too wild and crazy. You could see how that tandem could really work out. So I'm going to be pretty open. I don't really have a favorite right now. I don't have anything to tell you, I think this is the move right this second for the league. I'm going to let it play out and kind of see what pops up. I am open to them really exploring a lot of things. I've said it with divisions, don't get stuck in this idea that you have to go back to divisions. In all of these meetings that they've been having, I just want as much creativity in the thought as possible because these are unprecedented times and the league is going to have to try and do something new. They're not going to win and have success the same way the SEC and the Big Ten are doing it. I think you're going to have to be more unconventional. So maybe that means an unconventional hire. Well, plenty more to discuss. I'm going to hit you with a live show, obviously, this week. Hopefully another couple live shows this week. We have a lot of stuff going on all of a sudden with this, but hit me up on Twitter at JLKurtz if you have questions. If you like the channel and you want to donate, I would really appreciate it. It's John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you want to support Big 12 content and get more Big 12 content. That is one way to do it. Tell your friends about the channel as well. If you have friends that love Big 12 sports, easiest way to get the word out. And make sure that you do like and comment on the video. If you think I'm wrong, if you have a strong contender that you think should be the next commissioner of the Big 12, let me know in the comments below. Take care, guys. See you soon.